I've long been fascinated by the art of persuasion. How do we get others to believe in, or even better, to do what we want? First, let's be clear. You can't make anybody do anything. At best, you can set up the situation and frame your persuasive argument so that other people, in our case tonight, the public and politicians, will want to do what you think is the right thing. However, if people have strong convictions in another direction, or in a worst-case scenario, if your elected official is corrupt, you're probably not going to persuade them successfully. But on many issues, even maybe most issues, the elected official will not have strong personal convictions on your issue. In many situations, many politicians' strongest interest in preservation is the preservation of their own careers, that is, getting reelected. This gives you an opportunity to influence the outcome. Tonight, when you hear some of the ideas I'm going to present, you may say, that's not the way it ought to be. Okay, my talk tonight is not how to form a perfect society. It is how to succeed in helping your neighborhood within the context of an imperfect society. I'm not even suggesting that New Orleans is any better or worse than any other city. I think at the core of our imperfect system, and those across the nation, is that all elected officials are human. Frederick Douglass wrote, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will." Whether your noble cause is trying to eliminate slavery, as he was, or to abolish t-shirt shops, you cannot and should not wait for your elected officials to do the right thing on their own. To give a definition of community organizing, I think it's helpful to draw a contrast to what it's not. It's not advocacy, which is actually what we're more familiar with here in New Orleans. If the Louisiana Landmark Society hires an advocate, he or she will go to City Hall or the state capitol for us, and usually instead of us, to urge the officials to vote our way. A community organizer develops the strongest team possible, bringing together people with common interest or self-interest, and the team goes to the seats of power after being properly prepared and organized by the community organizer. The community organizer achieves success through other people. This is generally more effective for two reasons. One, other people may have greater ability to persuade a particular person than you do. A second way that community organizing is powerful is that it tries to build numbers. If our definition of power is the ability to influence, if we get lots of our members or allies to phone or email or send letters to the editor or have a rally or attend a hearing, we are, without even saying so, showing that we have a following. There is power in numbers. Nobody understands this better than elected officials, because on election day, they win or lose based on nothing but the numbers. The first thing to understand, and it's a basic rule of marketing, that nobody really cares about you. Oh sure, they want to see you physically hurt, of course, but your problems are mostly your problems. In marketing, we know that the best advertising does not talk about us, the advertiser, because nobody cares about us. Rather, it talks from your perspective and your self-interest as the audience. If you can't figure out why your target audience would care about your issue, think harder. It's very difficult to persuade anyone if you can't figure out why he or she might care. To be nice to you is pretty weak. Okay, let's do a crash course in what I like to call the 6 basic principles of persuasion. They were developed by Dr. Robert Cialdini, a professor at Arizona State University, whose work greatly influenced my work. Dr. Cialdini studied all kinds of people who persuade for a living: salesmen, politicians, attorneys, even con men. From that, he came up with techniques that generally make an argument more persuasive. You want to work as many of these as possible into your strategies and presentations. Okay, the first one, reciprocation. Why do the Moonies give you a flower at the airport? You don't want it. They do that because if you take the flower, you'll feel at least somewhat more obligated to give when the Moonie asks you for a donation. I know there are some neighborhood leaders who feel like they should stay far away from the politicians during election time, even coffees and socials. The problem is the developers are attending in droves, and the politicians then can't help but feel at least a little bit of obligation to their actual supporters. I've clearly seen a closer relationship with extra access to elected officials with whom we've helped through activities like volunteering as individuals to phone bank or passing out leaflets on election day. Tell me we shouldn't have to do this, and I'll agree, but it helps. Other than elections, do any favors that you can to help your officials, such as helping them with their favorite issues. Number 2, scarcity. If there's anything rare or unique, it has more value. In advertising, that's why you hear about limited time offers, or how the printing plates will be destroyed after just 1,000 prints. You'll want to stress how the French Quarter or Treme or St. Charles Avenue is unique in the entire world. That adds to its value. Another example of this would be, Mr. Mayor, I'm only telling you this information. You're creating the expectation that this information has added value because of its scarcity. Number 3, authority. People are generally more persuaded by people with authority or credentials. Therefore, hiring experts may help for your meetings. Or you may need to take a moment to establish your own credentials at the beginning of a meeting. Also, dressing professionally can make you seem more a person of authority. Number 4, commitments. People, especially elected officials, do not want to be seen as not keeping their commitments. Campaign season is like Christmas for obtaining commitments. A version of commitments is consistency. People don't like to be considered inconsistent with their previous positions. So if the campaign season is not going on, I would still say to Arnie Filko, I know how supportive you are of the business community, so this is why this is good for business in New Orleans. Or I try and tie it with ethics for Governor Jindal, or to remind Councilpersons Head or Majora or Clarkson how this upcoming vote will be consistent with their earlier stands supporting preservation. They don't like to seem inconsistent. One last tip about commitments. Small commitments make it easier to get big commitments because people want to be consistent. That's why a car salesperson won't blurt out, do you want to buy this $40,000 car? They'll say instead, is reliability important to you? Yes. Is safety important to you? Yes. Well, those smaller commitments are easier to get. So don't you think you should consider a Volvo then? And census. Anybody can be wrong, but it's less likely that everybody's wrong. So let other people know when others feel the same way about what you advocate. We can say, this is the way they handle t-shirt shops or demolitions in Charleston and Savannah. So what? Well, if they do it, maybe it's worth taking a look at. At VCPORA, we also like to remind our members that our gala fundraisers usually sell out. Hey, if everybody else is attending, maybe you should too. And you better hurry before the tickets are gone. And finally, liking. I thought it'd be funny to put this picture for this one. As every good salesperson knows, if people like you, you can more easily persuade them. Well, I know you in the audience tonight were lucky enough to be born likable. There are things you can still do to enhance that. When I was president of VCPORA, I took every new board member to lunch to get to know them and to bond with them. I never knew if someday there might be a close vote by the board. If so, genuine goodwill would help me be more effective in persuading them. Now, I'm confessing to you here that it was calculated, but it was also genuine. I enjoyed those lunches. I'm all about sincere persuasion. Similarly, you should try to have networking lunches with potential allies in the community, such as other neighborhood leaders or even business leaders. Good salespeople know that you should regularly look for opportunities for genuine compliments of others. Stress what you have in common. If you have Hornets or fishing memorabilia on your office desk, you can bet a salesperson will bring up the subject. Anytime you do meet a reporter, put him or her on your email list so they'll be alerted when you do alert your members about an important issue. When you do your media interviews, you want to keep a smile on your face and have a message of hope. For example, we can have high-rise towers and protect our historic neighborhoods if the city would just build them over there. You've already seen tonight what's possible with paid media like commercials. With those, you have total control over the content. You never know how a news story will turn out. And don't forget the blogging community here in New Orleans. Blogs are a place that people turn to read about controversies. If you need your members or neighbors to do something, you can email out for help. But keep in mind that a personal request is always more effective. If I call a neighbor to say, Wally, I really need you to come to this hearing with us, please, that will get more results. They teach you in community organizing that sometimes you don't take no for an answer. We had a woman from Central City that we wanted to testify on 111 Iberville. She couldn't come because of her plumber. One of our members volunteered to go to her house to watch her plumber so that she could testify, and she did.